Okay, I'm going to show you how I braid my handles and feet today, and I have my extruder gun. Looks like a caulking gun, but it's an extruder gun. And what you do is you will pull out 3 strings. Now, when I pull them, right now I can hear some popping noises. That means air bubbles. And if you have air bubbles, if you have a lot of them, you might want to just pull out another one, but it's just going to keep happening. So I'll show you what to do with the air bubbles that we have. So what you do is you just smooth them out. Just, very gently, just kind of mush them together. So that way you don't, it's just a weakness that you don't want when you're braiding them, because as you're pulling it, tends to make them, well, it might pull apart on you, and that's a drag. So let's turn that around. These are a little bit wetter than I like them, but it's helpful when you're kind of fixing the air pockets for them to be a little bit wetter. Okay, so then I pull the 3 strands together. I don't know if you can see, it's probably off the screen. And then I pull them up and hold them like this. Now I tap down the end so it has some place to anchor to. And then I arrange them like so. And the first one I always pull over from left to right. Don't know why, it's just how I do it. And you'll see as I'm braiding that the first parts you have to be really careful with, because as I said, it's a little bit wetter than I like it. So you have to be really careful not to pull the braids too hard, or they'll break apart, and then you gotta start all over again. Well, I'm sure you don't have to, but it just gets messy and it ruins the style of the braid, which you don't want to do, because you're already going to have one break where you connect the ends so you can make the foot. It's not really such a big deal when you're doing a handle, because the handle is you're not making a circle with it. You're just using it for a handle. But these are going to be feet. Let's see how it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. That's why every once in a while you have to just pull them apart and make them so you have more room again. And even doing it as carefully as you do, they will get slightly smaller toward the end. There's really not much you can do about that. Of course, granted, like I said, the wetness of it does help if they're not quite so wet, but that would entail other things. Like, you can extrude them and put them on a canvas board or a wooden board, let them dry a little bit before you start braiding them. That's something I do sometimes. And sometimes what I'll do is, if I want smaller handles, I'll pull them out and then I will roll them to make them smaller, which, if you're not looking at it, it's hard to explain. Kind of like rolling it between your fingers well, not rolling it between your fingers, you're rolling it under your palms against a board, just to make them a little bit smaller. And for the daintier of the mugs, that's what I like to do. Now see, you can see right, yep, I just broke one. But that's okay, because I think this is going to be fine for our foot. This part right here is a little bit weak. It's just being very gentle with it, because as you will see, it was weak, but it held on, so that was okay. And then getting to the end, so yay. They're still good and thick toward the end, so that's good. And then what I do is I pull the rest off, kind of. I roll this tip because when I'm doing handles, that's what I like for the tail of my handle, but I do it because it's easier to pull up as well. So now what do is I mush it together a bit. Just makes it more stable, and it just helps, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plop, make it, because what you're going to end up doing is chopping off one end, chopping off the other end, and then you're going to pull this up and make it the foot. So where I told you before that there's this part you got to connect back together, when it's really wet, it's really easy to do. There's good and bad parts to being really wet and really dry, and being really wet is good when it comes to mashing things together again. So that's going to be our foot, and once we trim, after that we're going to put the foot on. So we'll put that off to the side and let it dry. Okay, so here are the bowls that we threw yesterday, and we are going to take them over to the wheel. We're going to trim the bottoms off, and then I'm going to affix the foot. So we have to get this centered, and in order to do that, we just place it in the middle and use your finger, just touching it a little bit, so just adjusting it to get it centered. And there we go, that's good. I'm going to use a little bit of clay on each side. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. There's nothing worse than trimming a piece and having it fly off the bat because you didn't tack it down. Trim tool. And you get this wheel going really fast, and that's why you have to tack it down really good, because if you don't, fly off. That's just not good. And I'm not being too super picky because we are affixing a foot to the bottom. I just want to make sure that it's not a super thick bottom. I used to do feet a different way and trim off a bunch so I could have a nice big foot. Well, doing the braided feet, I don't have to trim a lot anymore because I'm affixing a foot to it, so that's good. But I like a nice rounded bottom to do that with. So I'm just trimming it up so it looks nice. When you first start trimming, it's really scary. It's like, wow, this reel is going really fast. But if you don't go really fast when you trim, you can take gouges out, which, you know, can make it uneven or just not do what you want it to do. And there we go. It's a nice rounded bottom. Now, I take that, see how it's got little blades? Because this is going to score the bottom for us. So what we'll do is score the bottom so that way we can affix our foot to it. Take off that clay. See that? But before we go and put the foot on, to put my mark. It's right in the bottom. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go over and we're going to affix the foot. Okay, we got our foot here. Now what we have, you can use white vinegar, vinegar works, but we've got this stuff called magic water. So now I use magic water. I mean, I really could use vinegar, it doesn't really matter, but you know, why not use this stuff I have? Anyway, see, I'm putting it on the scored part with the paintbrush, so it gets on there. And I made all these little circles. So that one's a little small. There we go. It's a little bigger. And what we do is we press it down in. So we want that to stick to it. That's the whole point. Okay, and then what I do, wood block, and then we use a level. We have to use a level to make sure it's level, because otherwise it could just go all over the place, which stinks. Now this bench isn't particularly level. I usually do this on a different surface, but this is for the sake of the video. Yeah, this bench is terrible, but once we made sure it's level, then we take this off, have a nice flat surface, and you're done. Then this has to sit under plastic for about a week, so it dries nice and evenly, so that, because the bowl is one thickness, the foot is another. If they dry unevenly, it'll crack and might fall off, so that's why they have to sit so long. And that's how we make the bowls. All right, thank you.